Civil Rights Leader by
Michelle Sarant.
and Daniel Gavrilowski.
Thurgood Marshall was born in 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland, nobody knowing he would be the first black man to become a justice in the Supreme Court. Education was of high importance to his family, therefore he attended public school throughout his early years and then attended Lincoln University. After he graduated, he applied to and was excluded by the University of Maryland School of Law because of racial segregation. Because of this event and the violence of racism he was exposed to growing up, he was motivated to educate African Americans and fight for their rights. In 1930, Marshall enrolled into Howard University to receive his degree in law. After his graduation, Thurgood Marshall served for the NAACP and opened his own private practice. When Marshall attended Howard University, the new dean, Charles Houston, made the decision to enforce the Constitution strictly over the school. Houston's decision impacted Thurgood greatly because he used the Constitution in all cases to enforce racial equality. The University of Maryland's choice to deny Thurgood Marshall came back to haunt them. Thurgood Marshall and Charles Houston successfully sued the University of Maryland for not admitting an African American man. Then later, in 1934, he joins the NAACP, where he hopes to change the United States segregation laws. Marshall was devoted to the NAACP for 25 years, in which he used the strategy of Jim Crow, using separate but equal, in a way that depicted that segregated schools were not equal and the unequal situations that African Americans faced. Thurgood Marshall was a leader and the voice for the African American community. The average black citizen could not change the law or overturn a case, but Thurgood Marshall could. He changed the way that African Americans were treated. His goals all included the idea that all people should be equal, stating, "A child born to a black mother in a state like Mississippi has the same rights as a white baby born to the wealthiest person in the United States."
Becoming the first black Supreme Court justice was symbolic, because his appointment demonstrated to the American society that the rigid racial discrimination was no longer socially acceptable. For black Americans, Marshall's appointment demonstrated that the old obstacles to professional advancement were being reduced. Black children could set their goals higher, such as becoming lawyers, doctors, and judges, without facing the absolute barriers to professional careers that had prevented so many bright, ambitious black people from pursuing their career prior to the 1960s. For Marshall's generation and preceding generations, racial discrimination and segregation had been so pervasive throughout American society that very few blacks could hope to attend college or even compete with whites for professional jobs. Marshall's appointment to the Supreme Court was a visible sign of the broadening of opportunities for succeeding generations. Marshall was sworn in as the first black Supreme Court justice on October 2, 1967. Marshall fought many cases against an assortment of issues, such as abortion, aliens, drugs, and racial segregation in schools. Beale v. Doe, one of his famous cases, was a significant case because it addressed the highly controversial issue of abortion. It involved public funding for abortion in Pennsylvania and Connecticut. It also brought up the issue between Medicaid and the states. Under Title XIX, the states that provided Medicaid to its citizens did not have to provide funds for abortion, because the title didn't say so, and at this date, it would not become legal for another 3 years. In Floyd v. Connolly, he and the court judged the subject of aliens. In finding it constitutionally permissible to exclude aliens from service on state police forces, the court sought to further define which kind of government positions and offices necessitated citizenship. The court further defined the limitations of such exclusion by stipulating that states must provide a link between their interests and the requirement of citizenship for specific state positions. Thus, privileges accorded to immigrants under the U.S. Constitution were further defined as to not only distinguish the limitations of alien status, but also the nature of what it meant to possess citizenship in the United States. Brown v. the Board of Education ruled that the segregation of white and African American children in the public schools of Topeka solely on the basis of race denied the African American children equal protection under the law guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. This case is probably the most famous due to the fact that it outlawed segregation in public schools. This allowed black students to apply for all white schools. This issue was as important as Marshall becoming the first black Supreme Court justice. While there were still some schools that completely ignored this law, there were others that welcomed it, making this one of his most successful cases. It also greatly influenced the civil rights movement, making further progress destroying the walls of segregation.
It's not true, but I challenge anyone to say it is not a goal working for. The choices he made impacted the United States greatly. As a pivotal civil rights leader, lawyer, and judge, he achieved his goal of destroying Jim Crow laws to help gain more rights for African Americans. With the help of NAACP and Marshall's passion to stop segregation, he set a standard for the United States to live by.